If you're a filmmaker or a content creator, then at some point you have been pushed into trying to make certain types of stories based upon what you look like. I've dealt with it my entire career, and this week I want to talk about why that is, what we can do about it, and how we can tell the type of stories that are authentic to us. Stories are like little manuals for life. They tell us what our values are. They give us instructions on how to deal with all the crazy things that are happening in the world. Since I was a little kid, I have loved stories and the different ways to tell stories. Comic books, films, movies, radio plays, video games. I loved writing, drawing, designing, and I think I just naturally became a filmmaker because it's the way that I can merge all of those different interests and abilities together in one cohesive art form. For me, stories gave me an example about how to model my behavior and also how to see myself. One of the ways I did this when I was a little kid is I used to be an avid fan of the cartoon He-Man. Growing up, there were no real other mixed characters on television. There may have been like a special episode on an 80s sitcom on occasion when it was like somebody either brought the black boyfriend home and how was that going to be dealt with, or some other character who was mixed would like talk about it, and it was like, how do we wrap our brains around this person who doesn't quite fit into the norm? And usually in these episodes, it was somebody who was mixed with black, and that was always this very special thing that had to be talked about in a very special way. They would come in, they would appear, and then they would go away. It was just this anomaly that occurred inside of normal American everyday life, at least on television. My parents knew that He-Man was a mix, but they decided not to tell me. I know that He-Man is not mixed, obviously, but it was very instrumental in how I grew up and me being able to find a positive role model. But when it came to the stories that I wanted to tell as a filmmaker, things got difficult. There is a descriptor that comes alongside every filmmaker's name and what they do. And it usually goes their ethnicity and then filmmaker. Spike Lee, for years, is a black filmmaker. John Singleton, black filmmaker. Ang Lee, Asian filmmaker. It kind of puts people on a tier below just being a filmmaker, as if their stories and experiences are outside of the norm and need a special category. This is getting better, but the time that I was graduating film school, this descriptor was used all over the place, and it was used to put them a notch below everybody else. This includes women as well. You'll often hear the phrase female filmmaker. Everybody is a filmmaker. If you have gotten behind the camera and are able to tell a story that people have watched, you're a filmmaker. You're not outside of the box. You're doing what everybody else is doing as well. And that is the end of my TED Talk. Now, because of things like the internet and streaming, there are more opportunities out there for filmmakers from diverse backgrounds to tell unique stories that are authentic to them. However, when I was graduating film school, I was pushed into telling black stories about poverty, trauma, being in a gang, all the stereotypical stuff. I had several instructors in film school who didn't quite know where to put me, and they would just encourage me to do that because they didn't really want to bother doing the homework of what my story actually was. I was encouraged to make stories about living in the inner city, dealing with the black experience, and struggling to survive. When not only is that not my experience, that's not even the experience of that side of the family. My mom's side of the family, yes, they were raised in a poor part of Chicago, but they are so much more than just that. I've got family members who are in the military. They've raised families, they've opened businesses, they own houses, they've lived all over the world. I had an uncle who was a sergeant in the military. He lived in Germany for a long time. He now lives in Atlanta. We have a lot of varying experiences that are outside of just we were poor and black on the west side of Chicago. If I was to try and pigeonhole myself into telling stories of what it was expected of me, I would actually be doing my own family a disservice. Because as we all know, there is no one story that encompasses every single person's experience. There's no one black story, there's no one Latino story, there's no one Asian story. They're just things that are placed upon us that color our perspective, help us navigate through the world. Now, part of this is just the nature of the entertainment industry itself. Hollywood is in the business of mass entertainment. They, for the longest time, have been trying to figure out how they can take one movie and market it to as many different types of people as possible. The idea that somebody who didn't fit the one narrative could come in and have a story that resonated to them was just foreign, even though the data actually shows the opposite. And the people making these decisions are doing so out of fear. They're trying to keep their jobs safe, so they just want to be sure that what they are financing is going to work, and usually what they know works is what's already been done before, as you can see by most of the sequels and remakes that we get to watch over and over and over again. Because if you're in a position to have something greenlit, you are not in a safe position. Your job, if you make one too many projects that don't cross the necessary threshold of, either making money or having an impact, then you will be out of a job quickly. And couple that with your salary being used to buy the house, get the car, put the kids in private school. If that job goes away, your life is essentially screwed. So a lot of the decisions that they make come out of fear. That fear resonates with the people who are also making the stuff, and I felt that fear. So what I decided to do, instead of talking about my own identity and experience, was to not talk about it at all, which I ended up regretting. So what I did was, first I would not talk about it, then I kind of talked about it, and then that didn't work. So I decided, okay, let me just talk about it and see what happens. But I had to answer two questions, and those are, is it truthful and is it helpful? All the stories that we tell, whether we know it or not, come from personal experience. Even if it's a story about someone who's not like us, the way that we perceive them ends up coloring the way that we tell the story. We have to think about where in our own lived experience does this story come from, and also what is the lesson that we are trying to impart to our audience. So when we're telling stories, we have to make sure that it comes from a real place, but we also have to think about the person who is watching it and how it's going to help them. Remember, stories are a manual for life, so we have to make sure that the stories that we're telling is helping somebody else understand the world around them. When I was that little kid watching He-Man, that helped me see who I could be. I could be strong. I could be mixed and proud. I could be a hero. I could be helpful. All things that would help me navigate the world and have confidence in myself. And the stories that we tell have to come from a real place that helps somebody else feel confident in not only themselves, but how they see themselves in the world around them. So we have to think, what are the people watching it going to learn? How are they going to feel about it? What are they going to take away from it? And how can they use this story to give to somebody else to help them do the same thing? In a way, telling a story is like causing a ripple. You put something into the water and it ripples on and has an effect far down the road that you may not even see. And if you are telling a story that comes from you, you will already know what the kind of people who are watching your work need to know, because it's what you needed to know. Maybe when you were a kid, a teenager, maybe it's what you need to know right now. But that is how you tell if something is truthful and also if it's helpful. Be the instruction that you wanted to be when you were a kid, and that is how you will find an audience. Ask yourself what things that you needed when you were starting out to make you feel powerful or confident. Figure out how your story can tell yourself that. And one of the ways I do this is to sum up this story in one word. As a filmmaker, I find it very helpful to have one word that sums up the central theme of my story, and I can build a structure around that one theme in that one word. I can go through every scene and figure out, is this story and is this scene helping us realize more about this one word? Let's say the theme is connection. Is this scene helping us realize something else about connection, maybe between the two characters, maybe the situation? But I always go back to that one word, and that helps me build the entire story and structure around that. Before we start getting fancy with like Save the Cat and 3-act structures and climaxes and resolution, boil it down to one word. That's your base. You can go back to that and you can build off of there. Another one of the reasons why I boil it down to one word is because it helps me burp. all of the internal needs that we have can usually be summed up in one word. So if you can do that with your story, you can start to address those internal needs that your audience has through the story that you are trying to tell. Because we know that there is no one box that all stories can fit in. They all come from our personal experiences, and our personal experiences are so individual and unique that they can't be neatly packaged and categorized like Hollywood likes to tell us. Your job as a creator, as a storyteller, maybe you're a filmmaker, isn't to meet the expectations of what somebody else thinks you should make. It's to create work that inspires other people, makes them feel something, makes them learn something, makes them understand more of who they are and their place inside of the world. We are artists that ask big questions, and we try to provide big answers, and trying to make sure that your answer and your questions fit inside of the neat little boxes that somebody else has defined for you is only going to set yourself up for failure. Our goal in life is to teach other human beings how to live, and the only way we can do that is being true and honest with ourselves. So decide for yourself. What kind of stories do you want to tell? What things happened to you growing up or even are happening right now that have just been an invaluable experience? What are the lessons that you want to teach your audience? What are the experiences that you know now that gave you the knowledge that you wish you had before? And then just start telling those stories. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave me a comment. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if this is helpful, if there's something else you want me to talk about. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.